Hey everyone, it's Jamie from Central Sewing in Prescott Valley, Arizona. Today we are going to learn how to put facing on your quilt in lieu of binding. So here is a sample of what we're going to be doing. That's the front, this is the back. So basically what we're going to be doing is adding the facing to the front of the project, turning it to the back so that you don't actually have any binding cutting off the edge of your quilt. What you're going to need is a 12-inch quilt sandwich squared up, fully quilted. Okay, for today's practice you could actually just sew in an X just to keep everything affixed to one another, or spray basted. Then you're going to need 4 5-inch squares and 2 2.5-inch strips by the width of the fabric. Cut the selvages off and press those in half lengthwise. So you'll have 2 strips this way. Then with your 4 5-inch squares, you're going to press them diagonally so that they make a triangle. And you need 4 of those pressed in half. Next, you're going to need a sharp pair of scissors. Some fusible hem tape is recommended. And of course, our handy dandy trusted pins. So for step 1, we're going to take all of our triangles with the raw edges pointed outward and line them up in the corners. And I just put a pin going both horizontally and vertically to hold that triangle in place so that when we do sew it, it doesn't shift. Okay, and you're going to repeat that for all 4 corners. So you'll have all raw edges pointed to the outside corners. Okay. Then you're going to take your strip pieces and we are going to measure them about 2 inches past the insides of the corners, and we're just going to make snip those and make 4 equal lengths just using a sharp pair of scissors. Actually, that was just not perfect. So you have 4 equal strips. Now at this point, if you would prefer to pin them, you can pin them into place, and where they're going to actually be pinned is just centered over each triangle. And all the raw edges go to the outside of the quilt block. And actually for this, I'm going to clip these into place just to kind of hold them there so you can see where they need to be positioned as I sew. You're going to repeat this for all 4 sides. So now take it to your sewing machine. We're going to make sure that we have our 1/4-inch presser foot on. We also need to make sure that we have a 90-14 needle in the machine. Since we are stitching through batting, we do not want to have skip stitches by stitching through this much bulk. So make sure you're at least using a size 90-14 needle. Now, we're going to start right up at the corner, and we're going to stitch all the way around all 4 edges of our block using a 1/4-inch seam allowance. When we get to the last side, we're going to sew all the way down to the very corner, and we do want to make sure to back stitch. Once we remove it from the machine, we are going to take all of our pins off and any clips that are left on your project off. Now at this point, we're going to just go in and trim pretty close to our corners diagonally just to relieve a little bit of the bulk so that when we do turn it, we get a nice clean corner. We're going to come in just a little ways away from our seam allowance. Just trim those right off. Now, this is where the magic happens. What you're going to do now is you're going to take and you're going to actually just turn this right to the back. You're going to take and you're going to turn all 4 corners. I like to take my scissors and just kind of gently push those corners outward. Don't push too hard because you don't want to push your scissors through the corner of your quilt. And you're going to repeat that for all 4 corners and then until they're turned nicely outward. Now, take it over to your iron. We're going to make sure that the iron's nice and hot. And what we're going to do now is we're going to just fold our edges down. And just hold your iron over it. I do like to use steam for this part because I do find that it flattens out the bulk of the batting. And I do all 4 sides of the straight edges first, just to kind of get it to lay flat enough. After you've done all 4 sides, straight edges, we're going to go back and just press the corners down. Just kind of pull back and lay it flat. At this point, you can take and hand stitch all of this down. I actually prefer not to hand stitch it. I usually use fusible hem tape. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to adhere some fusible hem tape under all 4 sides, including the corners. And we're just going to kind of press it down, adhere it. And then what I do is I just go back and I just press it. And you repeat that process for all 4 sides. And then when you flip it, you have your nice crisp edges. Now, for today's exercise, I did use contrasting fabric front and back just so you could see it well in the video. However, normally I do actually match the facing pieces to my quilt borders because I find if it does shift to one side or the other, at least you don't notice it. It kind of hides right in the seam. So normally on a real basis, I would definitely recommend match your fabrics either with the front or the back of your quilt, either or. I hope you enjoyed this quilt facing tutorial.